I'm going to draw an ant today. We'd had this like discussion, I discussed it with my youngest, and we both looked at each other and said an ant. Because I think, you know, these things don't get much love, do they? So I've got obviously a picture that I'm got as a reference, because you know, ants are quite, well, they're interesting, aren't they? And they're so tiny. Do we really look at ants? They're just, you know, things that annoy us at a picnic or anything. But they're quite cute, really, if you look at them. So we've got quite a little heart-shaped head. I've popped a little eye in there, which we'll look at later. So yeah, so I'll obviously sketch out everything that I'm doing. So we've got a segmented body. So going this way, some antenna coming up here. So this is a little red ant. The ones that bite, the ones that really do annoy you. Okay, stick the antenna here. It gives it a little bit of a quizzical expression then, if an ant could be quizzical. And I'm trying to do all the British animals and some of the more unloved ones as well, like ants. So we go down, they've got an incredibly narrow waist, and then, I don't know, is it a thorax is at the top, isn't it? Yeah, we're just trying to give it a round looking point there, and now we've got obviously 6 legs. I'm going to do them a little bit stylised to show that it's actually standing on something. So 2 legs, these will come out from the middle part of its body. 3. Now, do we put in legs on the other side so you can see? I think we'll pop in one here, the thought of a leg there, and then another one. We bring it up and then down here. It looks like we're just looking at it from above. So there we go. So that's basically our ant. So now the red ant isn't actually red. It looks like it's more orangey and brown. So I use these 2 paintbrushes for nearly everything. So I've also got obviously some water, and I've got some lemonade up here. So I've got to make sure I don't put the paintbrush in the lemonade, which is always possible. Right, let's do a wash. So I'd say it's quite a reddish orange. I've got some here actually. It's not going to be too bad. So I do a really light wash over the whole thing. Mainly to give us that kind of base to work from. There'll always be cat hair with everything I do. She's been locked out actually. So she's outside this room, and she's not happy. She wants to be in here, sticking her tail in everything. So go down and do the legs. Like I say, it's just with this flat brush, I can cover a lot of paint quickly. That's up her leg, that's that one. There we go. So I swap brushes, use the finer one, and we can start picking out some details, or at least getting some more colour on. So with the watercolour, I just kind of let it do its thing, because watercolour's very much, I think it's kind of like got a mind of its own really. So I need a little bit darker here. I'm going to use a dark brown, mix it with this orangey colour that I've already got, so that we can start making it. So I just let it, yeah, like I say, I let it do its own thing, just because it's so organic, and you're painting animals at the end of the day. So I want to move this around here, so just add some water, move it around, and you can go back to the other colours. I'm going to make it darker again, so a little bit of the dusky black in there, and again it's got a line on its bum. It's also got a hairy bottom, which I didn't realise. So yeah, but as I've often said, I did grow up in a zoo, which is incredibly brilliant as a child to have animals in your front room, animals in your garden and stuff. But my mum would often find me sitting by the back door, and I'll be sitting there, I could sit for hours just watching the micro creatures going around. And I want to give an idea of hairs on its bottom, so we're going to start eking out some paint here. Again, just work with the colours that are there, and moving around things there. Here anyway, so we're trying to give depth. But yes, I used to watch all the ants and everything. It's fascinating to watch them just go about their little lives. They don't know you're there. You're just sitting there watching them. It's just, yeah, something quite, I suppose it's quite, makes you appreciate things if you're just sitting and taking notice of the little things around you. So wrapped up in our own lives, we never notice. And these little things are going about their own business, living, dying, finding food, all the rest of it, not knowing we're there or not. And who doesn't find that interesting? And like I say, we often overlook ants. They're a pest. I'm just mixing up a darker brown by putting some blue in here. I just want to, again, I'm just following where the water is already. So let's add a little bit of this reddy orange in here. But yeah, there is a red ant, so let's bring it up on its head a little bit. I've got another cat hair stuck to the brush. And so again, we're just following it around. You'll probably be able to hear that it's absolutely pouring down outside as well. Nothing like living in the Lake District. You can actually put some bright orange in here now. Let's give this ant very much its characteristic red. There we go. I'm really liking how it's moving around on this part. It's kind of otherworldly. Let's do its joints, its leg a little bit. If you're finding, so I never want to be able to see the joins, so I'm just dotting some water on here. I mean, it gives a beautiful effect of just pushing the paint out where the water actually goes across, which I think is rather lovely. Gives you a light orange as well, so we can push it over here, which means we can bring in colour again over there. So I like adding lots of colours you don't think about as well. So this is the reddish brown, which I'm just going to put in here again to highlight the orange behind its head, so almost like a shadow. Again, we have here. We'll do its eye when it's dry, because at the minute, if I did that, it would just bleed through onto everything else. Again, we're going across this tiny little tiny waist, anti-waist. And then the gown, just pick out the legs a little bit, because we'll be rubbing these lines out at the end. So nothing worse than rubbing it out and realising you didn't actually colour in. We should get this happen more times than not. There we go. Now, there we are. Let's go a little bit up here. Antenna. And around here. Now, that joins the head. Let's have a little dark spot. So yeah, we had leaf cutter ants up at the zoo, which I always thought was funny that they had to count them when it came to audit time. Imagine trying to count a load of leaf cutter ants. Oh, I've lost count. Start again. And we'll just add a little bit more dark in here. I'm going for a medium brown on this one. Again, just to add depth. And on that little stripe on his body. Right, I think now, like I say, if we, on this brush I've cut it so it has an incredibly fine point as well. So just start moving this out again to draw hairs on this spot. So just keep moving the paint that's already there out. It doesn't look like you've added it. It looks like it's a natural dragging of what's there, which it is. Just to give it a helping hand. I always put little dots as well, just because I don't know why. I just think it looks quite cute. So you know, their bodies are very smooth, but the hairs on this back end, I wonder why it's got hairs. I'll look that up. Yeah, I'm getting there now. Again, I think I'm just going to add some more highlights. I'm going to put some orange on it. Let's put some orange up here, because you don't want it to get muddy either. And when it dries, obviously it dries slightly duller than what you put down. I don't want it to look like a dull ant. Do this, and that will bleed again into the little hairs at the end that I've done, so you don't have to redo those. It just gives that. See how it's naturally just, the paint's decided it's going to miss that little bit out, and go with it. You don't need it to be perfect. It has its own life then, if you just let it be what it wants to be, which is what I like about watercolour. It just does its own thing. You just go along for the ride. You put it where you kind of want it and see what happens. So this little ant starting to look more alive now. I do like that orange. I like how it's really highlighting its body. Right. And I've got this line down here. It's like a crease in its body. I'm going to go for like, it's almost the red. Just take it around and let that bleed in. But if you don't want it too bright, again go with your dark brown. Make sure there's a lot of water on it, and then just feed it in behind that red line you've done. What you do is it'll bleed in, but it'll give that highlight, a low light to your highlight. Oh look, a bit too much got in there, but it kind of looks cool, so we'll leave it. That's what I mean, you can't expect watercolour to do what you want it to do. Just finish off his little mandibles. Oh, look at how it's bled back in there. That's kind of cool. Should we put it under the eye as well? Yeah. So, and here where that joint is, and here where the joint of the legs are. And then we'll let it dry and come back. Right, so we've let it dry. Now we can do the eye. So less, I've got to remember which black is black now. I've got 3 different blacks here, but I want a really dark black. I think is this one. Let's double check. No, it's not that one. This one's a bluey black. I'll go with that. So now we can do its little eye. I just didn't want it to bleed into the other bits. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to add some white to it afterwards. It's really rainy up there. I think this is the really dark black. Yeah. We'll just go around, put it in. Like that. Now it's got its eyes, so it's got its personality, I always think, when you put the eye in. Let's see what else we need to do. I'm going to use like a grey blue. I've got here, I often use like stuff I've mixed up. I'm just going to just go across here, and you can do that little line across its back. There we go. And I'll just blend it in what's there. Again, we just feed it out. Get the hairs and stuff in it. And that's that. And then if we just do the line here, where there was that like crease in its body. There we go. And then down this leg, a little bit on this one. I'm going to blend that in again and just to the waist the colour so it's lighter on these other legs and it's mandible. Look at that. Will it bite? We're going down this antenna. Just looking out there, there's it. Across this one. Just to give it a little bit more depth. And down. So there we go. Behind its head here. Again, so it all looks like it's all together. And just add a little bit of darkness into the edges. And there you have it, an ant. I'm just going to add a little bit of white to the eye, and then once this bit's dried, we can rub out the lines. Now, I've got this pen, because I'm just going to dab in, there we go, the white. And there we go. One ant, apart from rubbing out the lines, all finished. Just blow on it now. And get it all done. I use a soft art eraser. So you don't, again, you just have to gently take it over the painting. These things come, pencil lines come straight off. And there, here. Here. I missed it there. And the back. The head. I can't find the edge of it here. Antenna. There we go. One ant painting.